This is Sarah Dicky. It is about 1:20 on 12/13/2012. I'm here with Al Koster, and we're here to talk about Sterling Strauser. So Al, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Albert Koster, and I've known Sterling since the mid-1950s, and I've always admired his work, and I came to know him, and I visited him and his wife at their home, and I just found him to be not only a talented artist, but a genuine, down-to-earth person who I really enjoyed conversing with and learning from him and sharing experiences. And I feel fortunate that I knew him and had the opportunity to obtain a number of his works that we really enjoy having in our home.
And how did you meet Sterling?
You know, I really don't remember exactly. It might have been through mutual friends, that people who had already known him and started collecting his works. And through them, I think we were introduced. That's about as much detail as I could give right now, and how we met.
Were you originally drawn to his artwork, or more of him as a person, and that's how you got interested in his artwork, or vice versa?
Well, I think first from his artwork, because I saw his artwork before I met him. Mm-hmm. And then when I met him and found that his artwork and he were there was the same attraction that I had for both aspects of his work and his person.
And what is it about his artwork that really draws you to it? And I mean, you have several pieces in your home.
I've always liked abstract work. I don't like to generalize, because a lot of abstract work I don't like. I like color and composition. I did a little art studying when I was in, even when I was in grade school, just very informal, and I always liked to draw. But I took some courses in college just as electives, and I also attended Pratt Institute in New York.
Okay.
To take advantage of the GI Bill after I got out of the service. And I learned to appreciate art more that way, in addition to the way I appreciated just on my own. And I was drawn to works that were interesting in the way a color and composition are combined, and Sterling's work attracted me in that way. Although his works, I wouldn't say are consistently abstract. There are some that are impressionistic or semi-abstract, but just that kind of work is just the kind of thing that I like to look at and to have in my home.
And you said earlier that you have been to his home. Could you describe in your words what his home was like?
Well, to me, it was like a miniature museum. As soon as before you walked into the house, he would have. We had a front porch. It was a very modest type home with a front porch, and as you're walking the walk toward the front of the house, you would see piles of masonite boards on the porch.
Mm-hmm.
Some were blank, some even had paintings on them. They were stacked against the wall of the porch. And when you walked in, just everything, the whole house was, the walls were covered, and it seemed like every space had all these interesting art pieces, paintings on the wall, there were sculptures on the wall, there were little other things that were on tables, and all interesting to me, very interesting, and works of, art pieces. They weren't just knickknacks, they were things that you looked at and admired and thought this took some a very artistic person, or in some cases a crafts person to put together.
And how would you say he was as a person, aside from art?
Well, as I don't know whether I mentioned it in the interview, but he was very down to earth. Mm-hmm. And he very modest, and he spoke when we talked. It seemed like he spoke more about other other people's works than he did of his own, particularly his friends, his folk art colleagues, Jack Savitsky and Justin McCarthy and Louise Nevelson, the sculptor, and he would point out those things in his home and how much he valued the works of other artists. Is an example of his modesty. He was interested in what I was doing. I was a photographer at the time, and I photographed and produced postcards of the Poconos, and I did commercial art, commercial photography. And he was interested in seeing my postcards, and he would compliment me, and he always he was a swapper. He liked to trade works. Have you heard that from other collectors?
He just was as much an admirer of other people's work and wanted to own it as much as other people wanted to own his work.
Right. So they swapped,
mm-hmm.
and he wanted to swap with me, which was quite a flattering thing for me to hear from him. He liked some of my postcards, and he wanted to have some of my postcards, and he would in turn swap for a painting.
Yeah.
So that's how I came to have some of the paintings in the house. Just want to show you one thing that I received from him that I really treasure and value. I had done a postcard of the art show. This was back in the early '60s, I think. They had an annual art show at Courthouse Square in Strasbourg.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this.
Right. And and I photographed this, and I had a postcard made. And he came across this card, I suppose, in a store, and he bought it, and he sent me this card.
And it says on the back, "Dear Albert, I think this card is a masterpiece and a real," is that scoop?
Yeah, scoop.
Scoop.
Right,
Sincerely,
right.
Sterling Strauser.
Right.
So he just really cared a lot about other people and was really supportive. I've heard that he's extremely supportive of local artists and just in general anyone.
That's right. He just was very modest, and he didn't talk about how the works that he did or what he was doing. The only thing he mentioned that his works were, at that time, he had a gallery that had his works in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, and he used to send paintings there, and they would sell them. Yeah.
Right. He also did an exhibit. This is a catalog of the works at museum in Reading.
Okay. Yes, I've heard about that as well. That. Yeah.
And that's a book that was put out at that time.
It's just the whole book kind of talking about Strauser and his work. And
here in this too, there's parts of the book that describe his relationship with other artists and their work, what they were doing to him. Something else that he did, I mentioned that I attended Pratt Institute, and I came back with portfolios of some of the work that I did, and one of the courses that I took was figure drawing, and he was interested in seeing what I did in my figure drawing class, and I brought my portfolio to him, and he was looking, and he really thought some of them, he was admiring some of them. And we ended up trading some of those. He took some of my figure studies, and he took me back to his, he had a shed in the back of his house, a separate building, where he kept his stack of, that he painted everything on masonite boards.
Yeah.
So he would go to the lumberyard, Kramer's lumberyard, which was nearby, and he would buy sheets of masonite. He had his own saw,
and he just kind of cut off a piece, right?
And he would cut off whatever size he felt like using for a particular painting. And I lost track. So one of the times that either, I don't remember whether it was a time that we were swapping or whether I came to him and wanted to purchase. I went to him several times where I wanted to obtain one of his paintings for a gift or something like that. So it was either one of the swapping situations or when I went to him to purchase a painting. And he took me in the back, and we just flipped through these boards of his paintings, and he said, whatever looks good to you, whatever you want.
Standing up with each all, in a...
Right.
Yeah, and I heard that he also had a like a garage up the street where he stored a lot of paintings too. Do you know anything about that?
Well, maybe the garage is what I'm referring to. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, to me, I'm thinking of it as being in the back of his home.
Yeah, I know that he had like a shed in the back that he maybe sometimes used as like a studio, but I think generally, from what I've heard, is he kind of just went and painted wherever, because he really painted a lot of what he saw in the Poconos.
From his home, the painting that's used as the one that they used for the exhibit here. This one. That was painted right from his home, in the back of his house.
Oh yeah.
You saw that in the
at the gallery, yeah. And this is the self-portrait is up there too.
Right, yeah.
Have you been to the gallery?
Yes.
Yes. And what did you think?
Oh, I was quite impressed. To see all of his works. For instance, at the hall where all the florals.
Yeah.
It's
amazing. The whole hallway. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And to see so many of his paintings that I would never have had the opportunity to see. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I liked they had that whole room. Did you go into the room where they had, like, I think maybe some of Jack Savitsky's paintings there, and Dorothy as well, which I thought was neat.
A separate room.
And obviously you knew Dorothy as well. Can you tell me a little bit about her?
Well, she was a quiet woman. She was usually, I guess she was always in the house when I was there, and she would be sitting doing her hooking, and but she would engage in conversation with us. And if my wife was with me, my wife and she would talk together. And she was a wonderful person too. They both were. They seemed so suited to each other.
Yeah, and she was quite a good artist as well in her.
Yes, yeah.
She did the watercolors
Right.
and the hookings,
Yes.
so those are,
Yeah.
but she really kind of took a back seat and let
Right.
Sterling had the bigger personality.
Yeah, but she was very talented herself. So.
And what do you remember most about him?
Well, just his congeniality, his gentleness, of course, his talent, and and he always had a smile on his face. He always had nice things to say. He was also very devoted to his family. He always spoke about his daughter and his daughter's children, and he did understand quite a number of art pieces depicting his
family.
So that was admirable.
And like the art show, like on the postcard, what were those like? Because I know that that was an annual thing.
Right.
And he was there obviously, but what was that atmosphere kind of like? Because I know that time was really, there was a lot of artists, and
right.
he was kind of really.
Right. Well, it seemed like everybody, everybody, many people who did artwork, that was the time to get out and get their works out, and there was everything from oil paintings, watercolors, photographs, needlework and hookings, similar to the type of work that Dorothy did. And it covered the whole courthouse square and extended out on Main Street for at least a half a block, maybe even more. I'm not used to talking so much. Excuse me. And it was a big event each year, the outdoor art show.
And when you would go and purchase a painting from him, and when you were flipping through them, now you said you liked abstract. Is that what you would initially kind of look for, or did you go in having an idea of what you would want? Like, what really?
No, I don't think I did. Just whatever
kind of
popped out
drew you in
as I looked.
So nothing like you weren't like specifically looking for one type.
No, although there might have been times when I went specially to purchase a gift for a particular. Then I thought, well, maybe a floral would be something neutral. Not getting it too abstract, where the person to whom the gift is going may not appreciate it. But I thought his florals certainly are universal. I mean, I don't see how anyone could
beautiful.
say, well, that's not real, realistic enough, or it's too, it's not, it's even though they really weren't abstract. Some people might think that doesn't look real, but that's. But anything else, just see sort of a variety of things, of subjects and styles.
Yeah. Well, I don't have that many. Is there anything I should have asked you that you were expecting me to ask you, or that you wanted to talk about?
No, not that I was expecting to ask you, but I just wanted to mention one thing. Looking at that vertical.
Okay, it's an abstract vertical. I guess blues and greens and oranges.
Right. Now there was a, I don't know if you knew about the exhibit. This one, yeah, the Outsider Artist exhibit.
Okay.
Did you know about that?
Mm-mm.
Where people who owned Strauser works were invited to display, either just to display them, or if they were interested in selling them, there was an auction also during that time. So we selected 3 to go in this exhibit. The vertical, the giraffe, and the still life it's in the kitchen.
Okay.
Those are the 3 that were of ours that were in that exhibit. There was a little write-up about the works that we had contributed, and I'll give you a little more detail on what I mentioned regarding that. And I don't remember. I think it was a time when we were swapping, and I was just looking for something for ourselves, and I came across the original of that, which was, if you can picture, that would be about 1/3 of the entire painting.
Oh, wow.
The rest of it went off to the left.
Okay.
What you
so
see.
This is kind of like the end of it.
Right, on the right
okay,
end.
The right
edge,
side, yeah.
Right so it was quite large. And I looked at it, and I really was attracted to it. And I said, I really like this, but I said, I don't have the space for that size.
Yeah.
And I really like that right edge. I mean, I had the nerve to say that to him. I really like that
edge there,
right part of it. And you know what he did? He took it. He said, where do you want it cut?"
That's the kind of person he was.
Right. And he took it to his saw, and being that these are on masonite, he just sawed off the piece that I wanted. It was like going to a butcher or something.
Yeah.
I want this cut of
meat, yeah.
Meat. And he sawed it off. And I said, that's perfect.
I've actually heard that that was kind of the artist he was. That's kind of what made him so great. Was another person I interviewed said kind of the same thing, that he saw a painting and it was actually sitting upside down on a chair, and he was like, "Oh, I think it looks like this," and he was like, "Oh, look at that, it does," and he signed it both ways because he was so willing to see anything he wanted. He wasn't one of those artists that was like, "Oh no, you're the whole thing or nothing."
Yeah. And he was perfectly happy to do that, and it's another example of what kind of a person he was. Luckily, or fortunately, that corner was where he had signed his name, so I was able to get his signature on it.
Yeah, and I mean, now you have a cool piece and a cool story to go with it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, if there's not anything else.
No, I think unless you have any further questions.
No, I think we covered a good bit of it. Thank you so much for letting me speak to you about Sterling.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed it. I always like to talk about Sterling or other people that I've gotten to know and like.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to turn the recorder off.